In this podcast episode, Tucker Carlson engages in a conversation with Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, the Prime Minister of Qatar. The discussion revolves around various pressing issues, including Qatar's experience hosting the World Cup, the challenges posed by cultural imperialism, the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East, and the ongoing tensions with Iran. The conversation begins with a reflection on Qatar's hosting of the World Cup, which garnered significant global attention. However, much of the coverage focused not on the sport itself, but on the country's social values and its alignment with Western ethics. Al Thani expresses disappointment at the way some nations and NGOs have used the event as a platform to criticize Qatar's societal norms, suggesting that this reflects a broader trend of cultural imperialism. He argues that the essence of hosting the World Cup should be about uniting people through football, rather than imposing foreign values on a nation with its own cultural identity. Al Thani emphasizes that Qatar respects visitors as long as they adhere to local laws, asserting that the country will not change its fundamental values to appease external pressures. He highlights the importance of family and community in Qatari society, contrasting it with the expectations imposed by some Western entities. The Prime Minister articulates a clear stance against the notion that Qatar should conform to values that contradict its own cultural and religious principles. The discussion shifts to Qatar's geopolitical position, particularly its relationship with Iran. Al Thani acknowledges the geographical proximity of Iran, which is just over 100 miles away, and the necessity of maintaining a working relationship with its neighbor. He argues that while Iran has its issues with the West, it is crucial for Qatar to engage diplomatically to ensure regional stability, especially given shared interests in resources like natural gas. Al Thani addresses the criticism Qatar faces for its ties with Iran, asserting that the country's foreign policy is based on principles of peace and cooperation rather than enmity. He points out that the presence of a U.S. military base in Qatar underscores the strategic partnership between the two nations, despite the criticisms aimed at Qatar for its diplomatic choices. A significant portion of the conversation centers on the potential for military action against Iran, particularly in light of its nuclear ambitions. Al Thani warns that any military strike on Iran could lead to widespread conflict in the region, affecting not only neighboring countries but also U.S. interests. He stresses the importance of diplomatic solutions and dialogue to address concerns about Iran's nuclear program, advocating for a peaceful resolution that considers the security needs of all parties involved. The Prime Minister also reflects on the broader implications of sanctions imposed on countries like Iran, Venezuela, and Russia, arguing that such measures often fail to achieve their intended goals and instead harm ordinary citizens. He critiques the effectiveness of unilateral sanctions, suggesting that they create black markets and exacerbate humanitarian crises without leading to meaningful political change. Throughout the podcast, Al Thani emphasizes Qatar's commitment to working closely with the United States and other allies to foster peace in the region. He discusses the importance of maintaining open channels of communication, even with adversaries, to facilitate negotiations and prevent conflicts. The Prime Minister highlights Qatar's role in mediating various international disputes, including hostage negotiations and peace talks, showcasing the country's diplomatic efforts on the global stage. Al Thani also addresses the skepticism surrounding Qatar's ability to host significant events like the World Cup, countering narratives that question the country's cultural legitimacy. He argues that such skepticism often stems from a lack of understanding of Qatar's history and its capacity to engage with the international community. The conversation touches on Qatar's energy policy, particularly its plans to expand natural gas production, despite global calls for a transition to renewable energy sources. Al Thani defends the country's strategy, arguing that natural gas is a cleaner alternative to other fossil fuels and plays a crucial role in meeting global energy demands. He expresses skepticism about the feasibility of achieving net zero emissions in the near future, emphasizing the need for a balanced approach that considers economic and environmental realities. The Prime Minister critiques the rush towards green policies that may not be practical for all nations, particularly those still developing their energy infrastructure. He advocates for a gradual transition that prioritizes energy security and economic stability while addressing climate change.